Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Jeremie, and today I'll be walking you through how to use the map analysis tool. The content that we'll use today is Grade 10, Unit 1, Early Modern Empires, and our objective is analyzing a map with historical purpose. So before we start, what is the map analysis tool? The map analysis tool is a way and a protocol to really break down a map and really use it for a historical purpose to answer a historical question. The steps: 1, observe the map; 2, source the map; 3, do inferences and geographic reasoning; 4, evaluate the map by looking at purpose and the limitations, and then wrapping back around to our historical question and the historical significance of the map. Why do we analyze maps to begin with? Maps are a graphical representation of the world or a section of the world, depending on what we're looking at. By the end of this video, you should be able to use the map analysis tool for any map that you come across. So let's look at this content. This is a map of Eurasian empires, and our question: what were the conditions and characteristics that favored empire building in the early modern period? So let's take a closer look at this map. When we look at the map of the Eurasian empires, we have to first ask this one question: what are we looking at? So first, let's look at what are the symbols in the key and the legend. When we look at the key and legend, we see color-coded empires, and we see color-coded and dotted empire claims by the Europeans. And we also see symbols for trade routes and symbols for the summer and winter monsoon winds. And right now, we're just looking at what do we see. We're not trying to make any inferences yet. We're just trying to catalog what are we seeing on this map. The next question to ask is, what is the scale and direction of the map? What else are we supposed to be looking at? And if we look at this, it tells us right here. This is a very small scale map, meaning that we're looking at huge regions and huge locations, but we're looking at them really small together in one map. And we also know that this is going to not show us a lot of detail because it's so zoomed out, but it's going to give us a pretty good idea of what's happening in this case too in the Eastern Hemisphere. We also see for direction, we're going to see the compass rose right here, which is going to help guide us for north, east, south, and west. And putting that all together, we can really tell that we're also looking at the continents, and that's going to give us a really good idea of what we should be paying attention to. What other geographic features are there outside of the continents and what we just said? Well, we're also looking at bodies of water. So we're looking at the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and even the Mediterranean Sea is highlighted here as well. There are other notable places and things for us to pay attention to. Definitely, we should be paying attention to the arrows that are showing us our trade routes, which we could see in our key right here. We should also be paying attention to political boundaries and the borders of these empires circa 1750. So these are all the things that we only just see as soon as we look at the map. So I put it all together in our chart here, where we looked at our color-coded empires, our scale of the map, what other geographic things did we see? So we saw the oceans, we saw the Mediterranean Sea, we also see some political boundaries. All of these are just what we are observing in the map. So we're not looking for inferences yet, we're just looking for observations. What do we see? The next step is to try to source the map. So now that we've gone through and we've said what we see, what information do we even know about this map? Why are we using this map? And a good way to think about it is first looking at it as, is this a primary or a secondary source? A primary source map would be from the time period, and we'd get a lot of clues from the map itself and how it's created. This map, and I'll give you a heads up, is a secondary source. So this map was created by maps.com, and the title, Map of Eurasian Empire circa 1750. So we already know that this map was created in the present by maps.com, and it wasn't created in the 1750s, but is going to give us information about empires during the 1750s. Because this is a secondary source, we will actually move on to step 3. However, if this had been a primary source map, we would have looked into the author, the date and place of the map creation, and we would have looked at the title and context around the map to really get us a better idea of the historical placement of this map. But because it is a secondary source, we're going to move on to step 3. Now, when we're looking at step 3, let's look at all our annotations together. We're trying to make inferences and seek a way to understand this map. And to do this, we need to look at everything that we've put out here. So when we ask the question, how do the symbols, scale, and directionality of this map further our understanding? We can see the spread of empires due to their colors. We could see how, for example, the Russian Empire spans across northern Eurasia. We also see how the Ottoman Empire spans from Eurasia into Africa as well. So we can see this from just looking at the map. And we also see patterns and relationships that exist here. For instance, we could see that the trading routes of the empires during this time really are crucial to these empires. The Indian Ocean itself becomes a hub, and we're seeing how important the Indian Ocean is to trading at this time. We also see that some attention was paid to weather, because in our key, we see that there's tracking of the monsoon winds. And that is something to pay attention to. That's how we're seeing how humans are adapting to their environment and using that environment to help them with trading as well. And we could also really start inferring here that, based on our knowledge of world history, that innovations such as the compass and the weather tracking are going to help these empires and traders navigate these monsoon winds and navigate the oceans. So there's a lot now that we can infer based on our previous knowledge, but also directly from the things in the map. So what I wrote to try to put everything together here is we can see the spread of empires due to their colors, and the example of the Russian Empire and Ottoman Empire. And we also see the importance of the trading routes to the empires and how they track the monsoon winds. So all of this is just coming from us looking at the map and then trying to connect it to our previous knowledge. Let's look at this annotated map once more. So in the step 4, our goal now is to evaluate all this information that we have and make the connection to history. And when we look at our annotations, we're really seeing a couple of things. And we're going to look at purpose first. So what is the map telling us, the reader? Why did maps.com create this map? So based on steps 1, 2, 3, we can see that this map is illustrating the scale and reach of Eurasian empires circa 1750. This map was also created to show the empire's trade routes and their tracking of monsoon winds. So we are getting a lot about characteristics of these empires as we look at them. And how do we connect this to what we are studying? Especially currently, we're looking at empires in the early modern period. Through this map, we can analyze an important, not only important characteristic of empires, but also we can look at the size of the empires as well. If we look at the color codedness, and we could look at the important trade routes that they took, which might inform what the empires do later on. With all this information, it's great. However, there are some limitations to this map, and there are information that is missing. So, what information do we still need about this topic? And what questions might we still have when we're looking at it? So, when I am looking at this map, I think that it doesn't tell me everything I need. For instance, what kind of goods were being traded along these trade routes? That would really shape what I know about the empires and the importance of these trade routes. And how did these empires use their knowledge of weather and monsoon patterns to actually trade? I feel that's really important for me to know, especially since the key made a point to say that there were summer and winter monsoon winds. There are things that we still could learn that we don't have in this map. So putting it all together, I put my purpose and what we notice. So the map was illustrating the scale and reach of these empires. It's also showing us the trade routes and the monsoon winds. And I also really talked about some of the limitations that I noticed in the map, because the map isn't going to tell us everything. It's one resource for us to look at empires, but we also have to realize that one source might not give us everything that we need. Let's put everything together now. So our question, once again, was what were the conditions and characteristics that favored empire building in the early modern period? And we are using the map tool to really try to look at not only this map, but also answer the question. So for our case, in the map of Eurasian Empire, circa 1750, the scale and reach of Eurasian empires can be seen. And we noticed that in step 1. This map was also created to show the empire's trade routes and tracking of monsoon winds. Through this map, we can analyze the size of early modern empires as well as their trade routes along the Indian Ocean. So we're seeing that was from our infancy and we're putting it together. And now we're connecting it to the bigger picture. Trade is an important characteristic of empire building, and the empires with more trade routes and who knew how to use the monsoon winds would have an advantage. So now we're putting everything together, and we even put our inferencing and reasoning there as well. Hope this was useful to you and that you have a better understanding of how to use the map analysis tool. Can't wait to see you next time.